many GeoNodes, meaning that one of the core feature of GeoNode is, well, by design, it's both a platform that can be used for publishing your data, so your assets, geospatial assets like raster files, geospatial vector data, DBs and so on, imageries, and also build visualizations on top of that. It's easily with the user interface. You can make thematic mapping, styling, build maps, build dashboards, build geostories, and serve all these resources through standard OGC services, and also as with viewers that are already provided by GeoNode itself, both for the platform users to build their or manage the data inside the catalog, or to share this data with ready-to-use viewers to be embedded or integrated in other applications. Okay, so when you can collect data both as files or remote resources through harvesting services where you collect, you organize the data, you prepare metadata, standard metadata, or even just a few metadata where it's optional. The metadata stuff in GeoNode is optional, but if you want, you can of course fill all the standard ISO or doubling core metadata, and so they will be served through standard services too, so through the CSW standard services as a metadata, so it can be a metadata catalog to be integrated in the metadata networks, or you can simply use it as a data view geospatial server. So you can just simply put your data in GeoNode and just use the OGC services, WMS, WFS, WCS services. And all these services, access to the functionality of the application, access to the services, access to the downloads or the viewers, whatever, is completely protected by granular permission systems that you can assign with at granular levels per single users, groups of users, or several ways to organize the permissions. So permissions is one of the core features, fundamental features in GeoNode, because of course you don't want to use it only for open catalogs, okay? And it has a very extended REST API, so you can do most everything. You can manage GeoNode completely through its REST API. You can add data, manage the data, change the data, users, permissions, everything through the REST API. So in the recent versions of GeoNode, we spent a lot of resources to make it not only a product that is ready to be used, but also a framework to build spatial data infrastructures. So now GeoNode is almost ready to be used as a backend service with your custom front-end applications or external applications that just use its services, or you can even create your applications to control and manage GeoNode. It happens, and this is what we are going to show today. The capabilities of GeoNode to be adapted, changed completely, even completely, in a way that it cannot be recognized to be GeoNode. So if GeoNode itself has a core, which is the project, the Django application, with the core modules, and so the way you customize it is by extending what we call the GeoNode project. So the GeoNode application has also a side repository, a side application, which is the GeoNode project, which is just a container for GeoNode that pulls GeoNode inside all the services, set up all the services, but it's a container explicitly created to let you customize GeoNode without touching GeoNode. Okay, so this is the right way to use GeoNode for your own setups. And this is what we suggest to use, not GeoNode as itself. You can take GeoNode and just deploy it, but when you do that, you are stuck with what GeoNode provides, or you change GeoNode inside the core, which is very difficult to maintain, and it's not the proper way to do that, because there are many ways to override or overload or change the way it works with this GeoNode project, where you change configurations and they take precedence of a priority over the core GeoNode, or you put models that replace core modules. So this is the way we approach GeoNode. This is the GeoNode project. All these, of course, this way you can, for example, simply use the GeoNode project to change the branding, to change the logos, change the styling, the layout, so only the UI of GeoNode. But it can also be used to extend the core modules, or also the MapStore client plugin, the MapStore client. MapStore client is MapStore is also a product from an open source project from us, which is a WebGIS framework that is used to build the GeoNode client also. And it can be extended with plugins. So the GeoNode project is also a container where you can place or customize the client, the default client for GeoNode, okay? So, yeah, and we did it. So the next is just a list of cases, various subset of cases, because we have a lot of cases where we normally deploy GeoNode with some customizations. Usually a customer wants some customization, even only a logo or a different color scheme, okay? I don't know if you have ever seen GeoNode, or you have seen, okay. Yeah, I should have given how the GeoNode standard UI is, because I mean, I'm assuming that you are interested in what you can do beyond it. So if you see this, you say what is different from GeoNode? Completely different, because in the standard way GeoNode works is when you access it, you have the standard banner, standard colors with just the screen GeoNode, and the home page is the the infinite scroll list of resources that you have in GeoNode. So you don't have any space for branding or your custom buttons and so on. So this is the first level of customization that you can get into GeoNode. Bring in your HTMLs, your graphics, your thematic, your graphics layout, so your theming. Also, I will show you that we have a system to define a theming system for GeoNode with CSS variables that give you all the principal colors. So you have a well-defined color scheme in GeoNode that is consistent all over the application. So in this case, for example, this customer wanted a banner and some buttons that link to internal views of GeoNode, or to external applications, or to custom pages integrated in GeoNode. So this is an example. Recently we have UNMISS, which is the United Nations mission in South Sudan, that is using GeoNode, that wanted the home page with showing only geostories that were built in GeoNode. So this is just a listing with a preview of the geostory embedded in the homepage. This is an Italian portal of the main river in Italy, where they wanted to have icons with about thematic maps, so the contents organized in thematic ways, so showing quick links to the thematic contents of. These are all GeoNodes, but they look completely different. This, okay? So they are still GeoNode. The core is there, the functionality is the same, but the layout is completely adapted to your needs. So how it works, I mean, I don't want to dig into the details. If you have technical questions, I can explain. Oh, this is a recent development we're working on. It's a work in progress. Now you are able to customize even more GeoNode, so you can take this is the grid of resources, so the normal grid, which is full page in normal GeoNode, you can take it and put it inside the total custom layout. So all the functionality, which is filtering, searching, listing the resources, previewing the resource, which are features of GeoNode that are normally placed in standard full width pages, which is the standard way, you can just produce it and place it in a web flow where you have a custom page with titles or whatever you want, and inside the page you have a space where you can place the component of GeoNode easily, so a normal HTML developers without JavaScript skills, whatever, can do that easily now, okay? So in this case, this was asked by this, with this organization that they wanted to include text contents, images, and their own stuff in GeoNode. So instead of embedding GeoNode in their website, they decided to put their contents inside GeoNode, and it's doable easily. So it's becoming some sort of a content management system in this way, okay? Well, I don't want to go into the details, but yeah, basically there are some HTML files that simply expose in a standard way all the variables that you want to set for the primary color, for the primary links, and so on. You just, in your GeoNode project, you just have to create these HTML file, place it in your GeoNode project. Is the you don't change anything in GeoNode, and it will take priority. It will override the daemon in GeoNode, and you're done. Yeah, you can also configure everything in GeoNode that needs more advanced configurations in JavaScript, also for the client. We are exposing more and more things. It can be overwhelming because you have a lot of options, but we are documenting all the options more and more with examples, so you can find examples in the documentation for changing what you need. So finding easily what you need to change, and it's a matter of changing a couple of files and no more. So this is for the front-end configuration. You can go even lower and change the functionality of the plugin, also so going into JavaScript and so on, but it's still, again, changing one HTML file. If in WordPress or similar systems, they have something similar. You have a config PHP file where you can override almost everything. The same concept applies here. And we also have a simple theme generator online where you can play, just define the primary colors, and in the end you take the HTML file, it's ready, put it in your project, and you're done. Also for working in dark mode, many wants to use dark mode and so on. So this was for the damming. But you can also start going further, and you want custom plugins for the JavaScript, for the client, or for the backend. For example, recently we created a plugin for weather data forecasting, and they wanted to, this is an API that interacts in a very specific way with MeteoBlue services. You know, maybe it's one of the okay, thank you. This is Heavy, another case where we completely developed another client application, emergency, so just screenshots to give you examples of how much you can customize it, okay? We developed modules for specific empirical equation calculators or raster calculators in the client with WebAssembly and so on, free, okay? And the point is that all these customizations, including what you want to show in the information, in the information panels for the layer, for the data set, and so on, is completely, I repeat it, customizable, because this is the main request that we receive. And so this is doable with simple changes to a GeoNode project. So in few words, don't touch the core, okay? We have a lot of integrations, we'll go faster, with, for example, where a lot of users use Airflow for doing pipelines, data processing, and we also use them. And we use the REST API we are going to release a Python module for GeoNode that implements the API in GeoNode. There's a Python module. We already have operators in Airflow that implements the GeoNode API. So you can just place your operators in Airflow, and you do all your processing, and then call GeoNode from Airflow tasks to do for uploading the data set or making updates to the data set after specific processing, the optimizations pipelines that you do outside of GeoNode. We have the QGIS plugin that helps you to prepare processing models or Python modules, PyQGIS modules that can use the GeoNode API from QGIS and directly interact with GeoNode, so pulling and pushing data from QGIS to GeoNode without having to do it manually, okay, outside of QGIS. Yes, this is the plugin. You can find it in the QGIS plugin manager. Deployments, we have integrations with all the major OpenID or F2 authentication providers. So we have experience with Azure, with Keycloak, with WSO2. So you can integrate the GeoNode as an authentication client for authentication providers for single sign-on, but you can also use GeoNode as a provider. So, for example, you can use QGIS authentication system to authenticate users in QGIS through GeoNode users, and you can even bridge the two. So you authenticate with QGIS, you ask GeoNode to authenticate, and you ask Azure AD to authenticate the user. So now you can make all the bridges. 1 minute, right. Deployments, do you need to use all the stack of services provided by GeoNode? No, I mean, it's the easier way. You have a Docker Compose, build it, run it, and you have everything. GeoServer, Postgres, RabbitMQ, Celery, and all the services that are needed to run GeoNode. But it's not the only way. It's the straightforward way. But you can, of course, use external Postgres cluster, external GeoServer clusters. We do it. Of course, when you do, you have, of course, to take care of configuring things correctly. In the Docker way, you just have to put some environmental variables, and all the rest is done for you because the network is auto-configured and so on. Of course, in the case of DB tables, you can also use data from your DB tables. You just register your data tables into GeoServer and GeoNode and publish the data. So without having to upload the data to GeoNode, but just publishing the data that you already have. There are some shortcomings because the management is up to you, not to GeoNode. So backup and restore is not taking into account your data and so on, but we use it a lot. What else? Closing. Yeah, same for GeoServer. We have examples of clustering with Hazelcast, JDB config, so big clusters of GeoServer. We do that. And but of course, this is a configuration that goes outside GeoNode. It's up to you to set up the configuration, or if you want, we can give you support for that. And you can serve external services, existing services from remote services. 1 minute more, sorry. Or harvesting from remote resources, meaning that there are also use cases where you don't even put anything in GeoNode. You just collect data sets and documents from existing services, existing sources, and you just use GeoNode as a catalog service for these distributed services. So it becomes a centralized catalog with metadata for all your data. Okay. Okay, closing. Docker Compose, I say that. Okay.